you ready to master the waves of medical device product development? Well, wax up your surfboard because you are listening to Inspired by Amua. And here is your medical device product development expert, that Hawaiian-hearted hostess who will help you hang 10, Megan Alonso.
And aloha! You're listening to Inspired by Amua, where we help you master the waves of medical product development. Each week, we interview guests that educate, guide, and inspire to give you the skills that you and your product need to hang 10. If this is your first time listening, Amua is spelled I-M-U-A, and it's a Hawaiian word, meaning to advance forward with passion despite rough waves. There's plenty rough waves in medical device development, but keep listening because we've got you covered. Today, I have two very special guests with me. They've been through quite a bit in the past few years, and they will inspire you to keep doing what you're doing every day because they're going to have a really moving patient story. And when you just have the chance to connect with patients that really use your medical devices, it makes all the difference in the world. So please help me welcome Jan Peuquet and Dominick Sirianni. Jan and Dominick, are you guys ready to hang 10?
Definitely,
Sure
Megan.
Are.
All right. So tell our listeners actually a little bit about what you guys have been through. I kind of hinted that it's been a rough few years for you guys.
So if I can, before we do that, if I can explain the relationship. So this is Dom, and my mom, Jan, recently had a heart transplant. So before the transplant, she was on what's called an LVAD, or she had an LVAD installed, a left ventricle assist device. But Mom, if you don't mind, why don't you go back to the beginning and kind of talk about the family history of heart failure and everything that you've been through in the last 15 years?
Okie dokie. My family has a genetic heart problem, and we were diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, which is a weak heart muscle, and my brother has it, and my nephew has it, and I have it. And I was diagnosed several years ago with it. And 7 years ago, my brother had a heart transplant, and my nephew is currently on an LVAD, and I was on an LVAD. I got my LVAD on October 12th of 2015. And probably about 3 years before they implanted the LVAD, I was having a lot of problem breathing. And like the normal patient, you blame everything that you're feeling on yourself. And you don't think that there's other issues that may be going on inside the body that is making you feel the way you feel. At least I didn't. But I've always been one to think that whatever is wrong with me, I have the power to cure. And I realized that I couldn't. I just couldn't breathe. And it kept getting increasingly difficult for me. And probably about a year before my LVAD, I realized that something was drastically wrong. And I kept going to my cardiologist, and I went to my PCP, and I kept being told that I was fine. They would do the proverbial echoes and everything, and no, I didn't have a substantially good ejection fraction, but it was where they thought I should be for the disease I had. And it got to be incredibly difficult because I felt like I was in a cubicle with 4 doors, but nobody would open the doors to tell me what was wrong. And it was very frustrating for me, so I changed my cardiologist. I went to 3 different cardiologists total, and then I changed my PCPs to 3 different ones. And I kept getting stonewalled, and they kept saying, no, you're fine. You're fine. You're where you're supposed to be. But I knew I wasn't. And I'm not one to complain a lot. I don't know if I complain a lot, but I don't think I do. But I finally went to dinner with my son and my granddaughter, and I just broke down. We were out to a fast food restaurant, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. I said, Dom, I feel like I'm dying. And I said, I don't know what to do anymore. I've gone to everyone I know who to go to, and they all keep telling me I'm fine. But I know I'm not. I feel like a third person on the outside looking in on my life. And I'm slowly declining, and nobody's helping me. And he said, Mom, starting tomorrow, we will find someone to help you. I promise, and I will be beside you all the way. So the next day, we did make different appointments, and I went to different people, and still wasn't getting anywhere. And it got increasingly bad to where I had to set up a chair between my bedroom and a short hallway to get to my living room, and then another chair to rest between the living room and my kitchen, which was not a far walk. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at myself and I'm thinking, all right, this is not my imagination, and this is not something that I'm doing, because I haven't changed my lifestyle at all. And so I started going to the emergency room, and I went to the emergency room 4 weeks in a row. And for the first 3 weeks, they sent me home. And every time they sent me home, I was worse the following week. Mind you, I was still working full-time and having increasingly difficult time getting from my work to my car, from my car into the house. It was just terrible. And so the 4th time I went to the emergency room, my daughter brought me, because Dom was on a business trip. And my daughter brought me, and the proverbial ER treatment, and they said, no, she's good, she can go home. And my daughter finally said, no, I'm not leaving this hospital until someone tells me why my mom can't breathe. And the nurse said, honey, I don't know what to tell you. You know, she doesn't qualify to be admitted. And Joelle just put her foot down, and she said, you do whatever you have to do, but I'm not taking her out of here until someone tells me what's wrong with her. Mm-hmm. And so she said, well, I can admit her for observation overnight, and we'll see how she is in the morning. And the next thing you know, slam, bam, thank you, ma'am. My cardiologist comes in, and he said, I'm sending you by ambulance to the Mayo Clinic. And he said, you're really, really, really sick, and your ejection fraction is next to nothing.
So if you can explain, and maybe Dom, you can explain this, what an ejection fracture is, so our listeners understand that, and how important it is, and just the gravity of not having enough oxygenated blood.
Okay, well, my ejection fraction right now after this heart transplant is 70 plus, which is above normal. My ejection fraction when they brought me by ambulance, according to what I was told, if my memory is correct, was a 0.1.
And Megan, as you mentioned, it is a key indicator, a KPI, if you will, of cardiac function. So over the past 15 years, Mom's ejection fraction was the number that we all looked at. It was the one that when she came out of a regular doctor's appointment, everybody was looking to see how it was, because it had been declining for well over a decade. And that night in the hospital where she kind of left the story, it was the lowest, obviously, it's ever been. There were a few days in there where they were monitoring her ejection fraction and they were looking at her overall health and weren't sure what the next step was. And there was a nurse at the hospital who came back after seeing mom, being mom's nurse for a couple of days, left for her weekend. I think it was a Monday, Tuesday, came back that Wednesday, and it wasn't her floor. Mom wasn't one of her patients, but she came in to check on her and realized that she had just fallen off a cliff and was much worse than she had been 48 hours before. And that's when the cardiologist came in and had the conversation with mom to say, you know, she's incredibly sick and we need to take immediate action. And that was when the transfer to the Mayo Clinic happened.
Mm-hmm. So how was that process? Did you go to Ohio?
No, thankfully we live in Phoenix, and there's a Mayo Clinic here in Phoenix.
Okay, great.
There were massive insurance complications, and that's obviously a different topic for a different show. But thankfully, Mom was able to be admitted to Mayo. She was admitted, Mom, you said it was the 6th of October, right?
No, my LVAD insertion was on October 12th. I went to the hospital on September, I believe, 28th.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there was about a week in the hospital before the transfer to Mayo. Then while she was at Mayo, that was when your first run-in with a medical device happened. So Mom, if you can, talk a little bit about, you were at Mayo to be evaluated for a potential transplant, but your cardiac function fell off a cliff again. Can you talk a little bit about the balloon pump maybe?
Yes, when I was admitted to the Mayo Clinic, they immediately, or I believe it was immediate, they put a balloon pump in to help oxygenate and get my blood moving through my body faster. I think that's what it was.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It was a few days later. So she was being evaluated, Megan, and about 3 days into that evaluation, or around the 9th of October, her heart, again, the functionality dramatically declined. And so they had to insert a balloon inside her heart in order to keep the blood flowing while they decided what the next steps were going to be.
Okay, so that must have been a really scary time.
Well, you know, Megan, it was, but I didn't realize it.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's
good.
good.
That sounds really, because I was so used to everybody telling me that I was fine.
Yeah.
That I thought, oh, this is just procedure. Thankfully, I mean, my poor kids had to go through it more than I did. All I kept saying was, either fix me or let me go, because I'm done with this.
Uh-huh.
Well, you're right, Megan. There were at least a half dozen times where Mom was within an hour or two of death, where if it hadn't been a device
Wow.
or a human being intervening, or a massive surgical procedure, she wouldn't be with us today. There's at least 6 of those between summer of 2016 and when she got, or summer of 2015 and when she got her transplant less than a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
So going from there, the cardiac surgeon came in and spoke with me and told me that he wanted to get a heart for me as soon as possible. And so he waited like 3 days to see if the heart would become available, and one didn't, which was actually the best thing that could have happened, because we both agree that I would never have survived a heart transplant at that time.
Uh-huh.
So that's when they decided to go with the LVAD, which is like a bridge, actually, that keeps you alive while you're waiting for a heart transplant. But it also gives you the opportunity to get stronger and get healthier, because I was so sick that I don't believe I ever would have been able to accomplish going for cardiac rehab and building myself up again, so that I could survive the heart transplant. I remember going to my first cardiac rehab and no, actually being in the Mayo Clinic and physical therapy coming in and putting me next to a bar and asking me to step on my toes. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't even lift myself up to get on my toes. And it was very humiliating and very embarrassing for me. But in time, I was not only able to lift myself up on my toes, but I was able to start, when I moved in with my son and my daughter-in-law, little by little, people don't realize that every day that you work and you do what the doctors tell you to do and you follow the advice of the medical staff, that you can achieve miracles without even knowing it. And there were days I didn't want to go. I remember being in the hospital and PT would come through and I'd be like, just leave me alone. I just don't want to move. I just want to sleep. And,
yeah, but you got to do it.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
And then little by little you see the results. They're inches of results, but there are results. And that's what it took. I was in the Mayo Clinic for 2 months. And I remember when I came out of the LVAD surgery, I couldn't even turn my body. I couldn't roll over. I couldn't do anything. And, little by little, they incorporated different techniques. And I was able to be discharged the day before Thanksgiving, so I could spend Thanksgiving with my family. And,
what a blessing, huh?
Oh, it was incredible, just incredible. But I'll tell you, that LVAD, I didn't like it. I liked it because it saved my life, but they had to hear me complain about that LVAD.
What were you complaining about?
The weight of it. It's the bag you carry, and it's got your battery and your backup. And it's heavy, and I'm very, very narrow in my shoulders and my chest area. So it was awkward and just very contentious. I couldn't stand not being able to move around freely, but I had to do it.
So for any cardiac engineers out there, this is a industrial engineering cue. So actually, the guest on our show last week talked about how people don't like to wear medical devices that she's seen because they're ugly. Well, this is another reason people don't like them, because they're heavy and they're just awkward. So if there's any way to make it lighter yet still have the same functionality, you've got yourself a lot more patients, because they would be very happy with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I tried 4 different backpacks. They didn't work. I ended up using the one that the LVAD team supplied me with, because I kept thinking I could do better, and I couldn't for the time being. But yes, if they can be made lighter and more functional. I didn't really care about the looks, because at that time I didn't feel well enough to care about my looks, to be truthful with you. But yeah, and around your neck, the strain on your neck from the strap, and I didn't mind plugging into the wall at night and having my backup batteries. None of that bothered me at all. It took me a long time to be able to remember all the different things, but that was because my memory was so poor and my cognizance after the surgery.
Yeah.
But
so as you mentioned, Mom, you're small, you're petite, you're only 5'2". And what an LVAD actually is a device that physically gets inserted into the heart, and it constantly pumps blood out of the left ventricle throughout the rest of the body. And obviously it needs power. So Mom actually had a power cord coming out of her abdomen, and that needed to be powered either through the wall, like she was just describing, or carrying batteries in order to keep the pump pumping. So when she talks about the uncomfort or the discomfort, what she's referencing is the physical discomfort of having this rather large device implanted inside her chest cavity attached to her heart, but then also the weight of all of these batteries that she had to carry around all the time. I used to joke with my son, who's 10, that, oh, it'll be cool. Now I'll get out of the hospital and we'll be able to plug her into the cigarette lighter adapter in the car. And that's not untrue. They really, for long road trips, you can plug yourself into the cigarette lighter adapter. But, you lose that connection. You fall in a pool, that you disconnect.
Ooh, yeah.
If you disconnect your batteries, and his mom is kind of being forthright and saying she was mentally diminished coming out from such a huge surgery and having been so close to death so many times that she couldn't be alone for 2 or 3 months after surgery, because if that alarm starts going off, it means something's really wrong, and you can have minutes to live if you don't get it corrected.
Uh-huh.
And while in the hospital, there was one episode, and I don't remember how I did it, but I ended up disconnecting both. And I mean, you would have thought World War II started again, because every single person on that floor came running. And here I am. So it's very important that the patient have support who can be there when the patient isn't aware of what they're doing or accidentally makes a mistake. I mean, it's your life on the line there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very, very important. And thankfully, I had the support from my family and friends that I needed that were able to be there for me when those accidents happened.
Yes. So the device would make an alarm if one or more of the batteries was disconnected. I wonder if there's a way to engineer it so that if you do happen to be alone, which you shouldn't, but if there's a way to alert an ambulance.
Well, that would be good, but another thing you have to carry around is a backup bag, which I found even harder because you have the device to carry all around, and then you have to carry this backup backpack, which is even heavier because it has an extra set of everything that you're already carrying.
Mm-hmm.
And you're supposed to take that with you everywhere you go, because there were a couple times where I was like, oh, I can just leave it in the car. But someone told me about an incident where a husband and wife were out together, and they were at Walmart, and the wife ran into Walmart for something, and the husband stayed in the car. And Walmart got robbed while the wife was in Walmart, and they wouldn't let her out of the store, and they wouldn't let him in the store, and the wrong person had the backup.
Wow.
So there was no way for anybody to get to him or her for her to supply his backup. And, it made me realize that's my lifeline. I can't take those chances. You don't know when something in society or in your neighborhood or your community is going to go wrong, and it's going to cost you your life.
Yeah.
So that really hit me hard. And also the fact that, you now have to be connected to something that keeps you alive, which is a scary thought.
Mm-hmm. So you had this done in October. You were out of the hospital by Thanksgiving, and then you were actually healthy enough, and there was an available heart for you to have a transplant at the beginning of May. So I know you're still on medication and you're still recovering, but how does it feel to not have that weight and to not carry everything around and to not have to carry the backup?
amazingly free.
Good.
Amazingly free, but appreciative for the device.
Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely. The manufacturers of these products don't realize the significance they have on people in their lives and giving them second chances. Because without the LVAD, I don't care how tedious it was, without the LVAD, I would never have survived to this point in time.
Do you, by any chance, happen to know the brand that you had?
Yes, it was Medtronics.
Oh, good. Yeah, there's a division of Medtronic not too far away from me here in Carlsbad.
Is there?
Yeah.
There are two different kinds. So my mom's nephew, my cousin, has a HeartMate 2, and mom's device was a HeartWare. And the next gen, as I understand it, of the HeartWare, actually to what you were talking about, Megan, it has a 15-minute battery that gets implanted along with the device. So as the devices are getting smaller, it's leaving more space in the chest cavity for additional functionality. And the next generation of this device does have a backup battery. So if, heaven forbid, something happens, the heart pump continues to work for about 15 minutes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's an excellent. At least it gives you, a possibility of getting somewhere safe. Now, we did have to notify the EMTs in the area and the fire department because a lot of them don't know how they're supposed to treat LVAD patients.
Oh.
And education needs to be innovative in that area as well.
Yeah.
Because, people with LVADs don't have a normal blood pressure.
And heart rhythm.
They've got to use the Doppler. And, a lot of times if the EMTs are called, they immediately want to take a blood pressure and don't understand why there isn't any diastolic.
Mm-hmm.
She lost her heartbeat. She didn't really have a pulse. I saw a few. I travel a lot for work, as Mom mentioned, and there are some signs up at the security checkpoints now that talk about these devices because as people go through the metal detectors, sometimes you look for vitals, or you might have to ask people some questions as you're doing your job as a security agent. And people with LVADs have a very unique bodily signature, and it's very unusual. We had to call the local electric company because if the power goes out, Mom only has so many hours of battery time before she would lose cardiac function. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen.
Did you have a generator?
We had the batteries that they sent us home with from Mayo had 24 hours. So it was it was 6 batteries that were between 4 and 6 hours each, as long as they were all charged. And then you could always plug yourself into the car. So we felt like there was more than a day, so that even if we had to drive, even if there was some horrible catastrophe and we needed to drive to power, we had enough time to be able to do that.
Okay, that's good.
There's another device that I want to mention while you're thinking, Mom, and this is much more elementary. And Megan, I'm sure this has been around, or how long these feeding tubes and everything that goes into maintaining normal bodily function after a massive surgery. Mom was so bad before she went into her LVAD surgery that she didn't wake up immediately afterwards. So the Mayo Clinic neurology team had to come in, and we were faced for a few hours with this decision of what do we do if she doesn't come around. And her surgeon maintained complete confidence, and we all latched onto that. That was incredible to have Dr. Pajaro with us through that process. But she lost all desire to eat for about 6 weeks after surgery. And Mom, what's the typical recovery time after an LVAD surgery is about how long?
I believe I was told about 4 or 5 weeks.
But discharge, like how long was Chris in before he was discharged? It was 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. So normally it's a 2 to 3 week process, but because mom wasn't eating, and she was in such bad condition, it was more than twice as long. And the only thing that kept her alive that time, Megan, was a feeding tube, because she, even though she knew it was inhibiting her own recovery, without getting any nutrients, she would have died as well. So even something as simple as calorie intake without that device, so many lives would be lost.
Oh, definitely. Because Dr. Fajaro finally came in and said, Jan, if you don't eat, you're literally starving yourself to death. And, but I just can't explain to people how difficult it was. The smell of food, the thought of food, it was just incredibly difficult to get through that process. And they put the feeding tube in, and then they also attached a nutrient supplement to my IV. And little by little, I started being able to eat, but it seemed to take forever. But yeah, that was a big issue with my recovery, because I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, you need those calories.
Oh yeah. But and then I was able to be discharged, and I went home with my son and my daughter-in-law. And my daughter-in-law became my caregiver, and she was just religiously conscientious about me following every single thing that we were told to do.
Well,
oh,
good.
She was. I mean,
She's a nurse at heart.
Oh, she is. And there were times I didn't like her so much.
Yep.
but she was religious. And, to think that she cared enough about me to do that for her mother-in-law. It was unbelievable. And even to this day, I can't believe it. And my son, I mean, they had me so set up so that I would be cared for and taken care of, that it was miraculous. And I mean, I'm talking about meds and what I ate, and she would tell me when I had to take my naps. And I mean, it was just because you can't, the saddest thing in life is to be alone by yourself without someone to help you and support you, because I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it on my own. I was too weak. And so, it's just incredible. Incredible. Yeah. It took an army.
Well, good.
It did.
So
then I'm sitting at home, and I'm reading a book and watching TV, and my phone rings. And the whole time that you have an LVAD, you're told you have to have your phone on me at all times, so that if a heart becomes available, you can get the phone call.
Yes.
So there I sit reading on a Thursday night, and my phone rings, and it said, unidentified caller. So I said, it's not me.
I'm not going to answer it.
I didn't answer it. And then it rang again, and I thought, oh, maybe I better answer. And it was this lovely woman. Her name was Shirley. And she said, I'm looking for Janice Peuquet. And I said, this is Jan. And she said, well, I understand that you're waiting for a heart. And it was just, I said, yes, I am. Why? And she said, because I happen to have a heart for you. And it was just incredible. I called my son and I said, they have a heart for me.
Yeah.
And that somebody, donated their heart to save my life. And it was incredible. And Dom said, Mom, okay, now please, I just want you to sit down and breathe. Don't move, don't do anything, just sit down and take this in and breathe. I go, oh, no, I could fly a plane right now. This is the best day of my life. So it was just the whole journey and the timing and everything was just so perfect. And I was at the strongest I'd been in years, so that I was able to be strong enough to have the surgery.
Oh, that's great. So there you go. Thank you, Medtronic.
Oh, big time. And Heartware and all of them. I mean, these people, it just amazes me how intricate these different parts are. And how everybody working together on all of these different parts of the plan and the innovative ideas can truthfully save people's lives. And I don't know that any one of them understand how valuable their encouragement and their dedication to their jobs are to people like me.
Well, we want to bring people on the show like you to really highlight that. It's important that people hear that have already done that work, but are also going through that work now, so that they keep going. They don't stop. They don't stop, have right. You as an inspiration.
Well, the day I got my new heart, we were at the emergency room and they had me all ready to go in, and they said, now, we can't tell you if you're going to get it or if you're not. You either wake up with chest pain or you don't. And if you do, then it means you got it. and you know what, Megan, it was so weird because I woke up and I didn't even think about it. I looked at Dom and I think I gave him either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And he gave me the thumbs up. I think that's what I saw. I don't know.
Hey, if that's how you remember it, that's just fine.
That was a good thing. And we could all, to have a living organ working in your chest, it was the most incredible feeling I've ever had in my life. And that's including childbirth, everything, because I didn't have a working organ, and I had forgotten what one felt like. And I could hear the heart beating, and you could hear this splashing. And my kids were on the other side of the room, and we could all hear it. It was like a fish in a fish tank, just splashing and going crazy all over the place. And I said, we all looked at each other and thought, what the heck is that? And they fill your chest cavity up with fluid, and it's your heart splashing all around. And that lasted, what do you think, a couple hours?
Yeah, it was about maybe 4 hours total, but your chest cavity just fills up post-surgery with that fluid, and yeah, it sounded like a pump underwater. It was incredible.
And then immediately, to have a living organ working like that, and then the next day they did an echo, and I looked over at the screen, and where my heart normally would go, thump, 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 it was just rocking and rolling like I used to dance when I was 16 years old. And it was just amazing. And we all thought that my heart transplant surgery was going to be just as tough as the LVAD, but it wasn't at all.
That's what I heard, that it was just so smooth, and that's
smooth sailing.
Yeah, that's credit to the LVAD to just, you were in a much healthier state, so you were able to handle the surgery a lot better.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Just amazing. And I can't say enough about the Mayo Clinic. Like I said, every intricate person that contributes to this medical innovation is at the top of my list of important people in this world. Because without you, we wouldn't survive these types of episodes in our lives.
I think actually that's a really powerful note to end on here. That was a great closing. So thank you so much for being on the show and just really inspiring us and showing that this work is really important. And even though it's very tough work, it needs to be done, and the struggle needs to continue day in and day out to bring these new innovations to life so we can save others.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more, Megan.
Oh, and keep telling those stories, Megan, because you made a point a couple of minutes ago that it's the people out there struggling to bring devices to market now who need to hear these messages so that they don't give up, so that they can bring more innovation to the space and they can keep more people alive, because at the end of the day, that's really what they're doing.
A big pat on the back to each and every one of them.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And again, it's so special to hear. And I'm looking forward to more patient stories just like this. It's so special.
Good. Well, I'm glad I could be helpful. I hope I can be helpful in the future in other ways, because God gave me a gift that I have to share with the rest of the world to help other people.
Yes, and I know that you've made a difference by inspiring other people tonight. So hey, I hope you enjoyed this really heartfelt story and that it really motivates you to keep doing what you're doing. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. And remember, the Facebook group is always there for your support. You just got to search Inspired by AMUA in Facebook, and you'll connect with others going through their journey of building their medical innovations too. We would love to see you in there. And until the next episode, AMUA.
Mahalo for joining us. If you're new to riding the waves of medical device product development, or if you've been in development for a while already, Inspired by AMUA is here to surf with you. Want to be a master of the waves? Text HANG10, that's all one word, HANGTEN, to 44222. We'll send you the most common wipeouts companies make in product development so you can avoid them and reach master wave status. Again, that's HANG10 to 44222. We publish a new episode every Tuesday, so catch us at inspiredbyamua.com. AMUA.